Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature Channel. Tonight, we are going to explore something truly wonderful, the secret intelligence of nature. Did you know that trees can talk to each other? That a tiny ant knows things no one ever taught her? That a flower knows exactly when to open and when to rest? Nature is so wise, so quietly clever, it has been solving puzzles and making plans for millions of years, long before we even arrived. So take a slow breath in and let it go. Find your most comfortable position. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands rest. Tonight, we will wander gently through forests, rivers, and meadows and discover just how wonderfully alive this world truly is. Deep in the forest, where the light falls soft and green through the canopy, there is a kind of conversation happening. One you cannot hear with your ears, but that has been going on for centuries. The trees are talking, not in words, not in sounds, but through something far more ancient, a web of roots and fungi beneath your feet, stretching through the dark soil like the threads of a dream. Scientists call it the mycorrhizal network, but you might think of it simply as the forest's own quiet mind. A single oak tree can be connected to hundreds of other trees through this underground web. When one tree needs water, a signal moves through the network, slow and sure, the way a thought moves through half-sleep. Nearby trees, sensing the need, begin to shift their resources. Roots ease open, water flows. It is not rushed, not loud. It is the gentlest kind of care. The oldest trees in a forest, the great-grandmothers and grandfathers, as some researchers lovingly call them, are the most connected of all. Their roots stretch the farthest. Their fungal threads touch the most neighbors. And when young seedlings push up through the soil in the shade of their elders, it is often these ancient trees that send them the first gifts of sugar, drawn down from sunlight far above. A seedling in deep shade cannot photosynthesize enough to feed itself. It sits in the shadow of the canopy, small and pale, waiting. But the old trees sense it. They send carbon, the very stuff of life, down through the network into the tiny roots of the young plant, like a grandmother pressing something warm into a child's hands before the journey begins. The fungi in the network do not give their services for free, of course. They are wise in their own way. In exchange for the sugar and carbon they carry between trees, they take a small portion for themselves. It is a trade that has been running for 400 million years, long before the first forests even had leaves. A partnership so old it is written into the very DNA of the soil. When a tree is sick or injured, its chemistry changes. The molecules it releases into the network carry a kind of alarm, not a shout, but a slow and careful message. Neighboring trees begin to produce their own defensive compounds in response. They do not wait to be attacked. They prepare quietly, the way you might pull a blanket a little tighter before the rain begins. There is a species of willow tree that, when caterpillars begin to eat its leaves, releases a cloud of chemicals into the air around it. Other willows nearby, ones the caterpillars have not yet reached, detect these airborne signals and begin producing bitter tannins in their own leaves, making themselves less appetizing before any insect has taken a single bite. The forest thinks ahead. If you enjoy these gentle stories from nature, a like on this video helps others find their way here too. We are so glad you're with us tonight. The roots of a forest tree are in many ways, as complex as its branches. They reach out not just for water and minerals, but to feel the soil, its temperature, its dampness, its chemistry. A root tip has been compared to a very slow brain, gathering information, processing it, deciding which way to grow. In a loose, well-watered soil, the roots spread wide and lazy. In dry, compacted earth, they push downward, searching. Some trees can even sense the direction of gravity so precisely that if you were to tip a young sapling sideways in the dark, it would redirect its roots within hours, curving them back toward the Earth's center, as reliable as a compass. The intelligence of roots is patient. A tree may spend a decade sending roots toward a distant source of water, a buried spring, a crack in the rock where moisture lingers. It does not rush, it does not panic. It simply grows, one slow millimeter at a time, in the right direction. Beneath a pine forest, the soil is a treasure of information. Each layer tells a story, where the rain fell hardest, where a deer walked and pressed the earth, where an old log slowly dissolved into sweetness over 40 years. The roots read all of this like a language, adjusting, responding, remembering in their way. There is something calming in knowing that beneath every forest floor, beneath every meadow you have ever walked through, there is this vast and quiet intelligence working, connecting, caring. You have never seen it. You will likely never see it. But it is there, as constant as breathing. The beech tree stores information about droughts it experienced decades ago. When a dry summer comes, it responds more efficiently than a young tree, because it has in some sense learned, not with a mind as we understand it, but with chemistry and structure. The memory is held in wood and sap, in the geometry of its cells. A mature forest has a kind of collective memory. The soil itself remembers. The seed bank buried in the earth holds plants that have not grown in 50 years, waiting for the right moment. A fire that clears the canopy, a flood that shifts the light. The forest does not forget. It simply waits with extraordinary patience for the right conditions to remember. Let your breath slow now. Let the image of dark, rich soil fill your mind. That quiet world beneath the grass, beneath the roots, where so much is happening so gently that you would never guess. The forest is not still. It is breathing, communicating, remembering, and all of it is soft. The way a tree grows toward light is called phototropism, and it is one of the most graceful pieces of intelligence in nature. A seedling in a dark room will bend toward a single window with such precision that it almost seems to look. The cells on the shaded side of its stem grow faster, pushing the tip toward the brightness, slow and sure, like a dreamer turning toward warmth. In dense forests, young trees must compete for light. Some species grow fast and straight, racing upward. Others grow wide, spreading their leaves to catch whatever scattered light makes it through the canopy. And some, the most patient of all, simply wait in the understory for decades, barely growing, conserving their energy, ready to burst upward the moment a gap opens in the canopy above. This waiting strategy is one of the quietest forms of intelligence in nature. The tree does not give up. It does not force its way. It simply holds on, growing just enough to survive, until the day the old giant above it finally falls, and light floods in, and the long patient wait is over. You might imagine that feeling now, the stillness of waiting for the right moment, not with tension, but with calm certainty. Like a tree in the understory, roots deep, breathing slow. You have everything you need. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Mosses are among the oldest plants on Earth, and their intelligence is wonderfully simple. They do not have roots in the way trees do. They absorb water directly through their tiny leaves, like sponges. In a dry spell, they simply go dormant, not dead, just waiting, their cells pausing, their breathing nearly stopping. And when rain comes, they spring back to life within hours, green and alive, as if they had never been away. A moss can survive being completely dried out for years, and then revive when wetted. Some species found in ancient herbarium collections, pressed flat and dry for over a century, have been successfully rehydrated and grown. The intelligence of the moss is the intelligence of resilience. Not fighting, not forcing, but yielding, resting, waiting to return. There is a tree in Sweden called Old Chico, a Norway spruce whose root system has been growing for nearly 10,000 years. The trunk above ground is young. Trees like this clone themselves, growing new trunks from the same ancient root system as the old ones die. But the roots beneath, the living intelligence of the organism, have been there since before the first cities were built. It is the oldest living individual organism on Earth by some measures, and it does not look remarkable. It stands quietly on a windswept hillside, small and unassuming, carrying its extraordinary age without drama. Flowers know what time it is, not in the way you glance at a clock, but in a way far older and more precise. The dandelion closes its petals at night and opens them again in the morning. And if you keep one in a dark room, it continues this rhythm for days, as though it can feel the turning of the earth, even without sunlight. This internal clock, found in nearly every living thing on the planet, is called a circadian rhythm, and in plants, it is woven into their chemistry as naturally as the color of their petals. Some flowers open at such precise times that the Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus designed a flower clock, a garden planted with species that opened and closed at specific hours of the day. If you sat in that garden and watched, you would always know the time. The plants were more reliable than most clocks of the era. The lotus flower has one of the most remarkable relationships with the temperature in the plant kingdom. It generates its own heat. Not much, but enough to maintain a temperature several degrees warmer than the air around it, even in cool nights. Scientists believe this warmth attracts insects, who are drawn to the flower as if to a small hearth. It is a gentle invitation offered by a plant that has somehow learned to be warm. Let your own body soften now, the way a flower softens at the end of a long warm day. Your petals, if you had them, folding inward, the world growing quiet around you. This is exactly what rest looks like in nature, not a stopping, but a gentle folding inward. The Venus flytrap is perhaps the most famous example of animal-like intelligence in the plant world. It counts. When an insect lands on its inner surface, tiny trigger hairs must be touched, not once, but twice within about 20 seconds, before the trap snaps shut. This prevents the plant from wasting energy closing on raindrops or falling leaves. One touch means maybe. 2 touches means yes. It is a system of confirmation, of patience, of not acting too quickly. There is something deeply reassuring about this. Even the Venus flytrap does not rush. It waits for certainty. It conserves its energy. It does not snap at every small thing that passes. Sunflowers track the sun across the sky during the day in a process called solar tracking or heliotropism. Young sunflowers face east in the morning, slowly turning through the day to follow the light, finishing the day facing west. Overnight, they rotate back to face east again, ready for dawn. As they mature and their stems stiffen, they settle permanently facing east, where the morning sun will warm them first, attracting the most insects at the coolest time of day. There is a strategy in that stillness. The playlist on this channel is full of nights just like this one. Quiet stories about the natural world, ready whenever you need to rest. Do take a look when you have a chance. Seeds are extraordinary packages of patient intelligence. A lotus seed recovered from a dry lake bed in China was successfully germinated. It was approximately 1,300 years old. The seed had simply waited, its tiny cargo of life sealed inside through dynasties and centuries, through changes in climate and landscape, until the conditions were finally right. What kind of intelligence does it take to wait 1,300 years? The answer is in the chemistry of the seed coat. Layers of compounds specifically designed to resist decay, to block moisture, to hold the spark of life in suspension. Every dimension of that tiny structure is a solution to a problem the plant solved long before we arrived. Grass is one of the most successful plants on Earth, and a large part of its success comes from where it keeps its growing tip. Most plants grow from the tip of their shoots, which means that if something eats the top, growth is disrupted. But grasses grow from the base of each blade, close to the ground. Animals can eat them to the root, and the grass simply grows back undamaged. It is a design so elegant that it made possible the vast grasslands of the world, the feeding grounds of buffalo and zebra and elephant. An idea so clever, it changed the face of the planet. When you fall asleep, your body does something like what a tree does in winter. It withdraws to its core, conserves its energy, does its quiet maintenance work in the dark. There is no failure in rest. It is the most intelligent thing a living thing can do. The cactus is a lesson in holding on. In the driest deserts on Earth, where rain may not fall for a year or more, the cactus stores water in its thick, waxy tissues and seals it there with a surface that barely breathes. Its spines are not just for defense. They are also for collecting moisture. Fog condenses on them in the cool night air and drips down to the base of the plant, where the roots are waiting. Even the desert's sparse, damp air is enough. Bamboo is one of the fastest growing plants on Earth. Some species grow nearly a meter in a single day. But more remarkable is its flowering habit. Bamboo plants of the same species across the entire world, separated by oceans, by decades of growth, will flower simultaneously, all at once, as though following some secret planetary signal. Then they die, leaving behind masses of seed. No one fully understands how they synchronize. It is one of nature's most beautiful mysteries. The intelligence of plants is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not move quickly enough for us to notice. But it is there in every root, every petal, every seed, every slow turn toward the light. And as you rest here, that same slow turning is happening all around you, in every leaf and blade of grass, every moss on every stone. The world is quietly, gently, brilliantly alive. The bee arrives at a flower without a map, without words, without anything you might call a thought. And yet, she navigates. She knows the angle of the sun. She knows how long she has been flying. She knows, in some wordless way, exactly how far from the hive she is and in which direction home lies. When she returns to the hive full of nectar, she communicates the location of the flowers she found through dance, a figure-8 waggle dance that encodes distance, direction, and quality in the movements of her body. Her hive mates watch, feel the vibrations through the honeycomb, and understand. The waggle dance is one of the most studied forms of animal communication in the world, and it remains astonishing. A bee waggles in a straight line at an angle to gravity that corresponds exactly to the angle of the flower source relative to the sun. The duration of the waggle run tells the distance. The energy of the dance communicates how good the flowers are. It is a language written in movement, older than any human tongue. Bees can also count. Researchers have shown that bees can learn to choose a symbol associated with a specific number, up to 4 or 5, and remember this association across multiple days. They recognize patterns. They solve problems. They communicate across a hive of 40,000 individuals with no central authority, no leader giving instructions, and yet the hive functions as a single, efficient mind. The hive mind of bees is one of the most elegant examples of distributed intelligence in nature. No single bee understands the whole system. No single bee decides when to swarm, when to build, when to rest. And yet, the hive decides smoothly, efficiently, without confusion, through 1,000 small interactions between individual bees, each following simple rules, each contributing one small thread to the whole. Let your breathing settle a little more. Imagine the warmth of a hive on a summer afternoon, the steady hum of 40,000 small bodies, each doing her quiet part. There is a deep peace in belonging to something so much larger than yourself. Ants have been farming for 50 million years, far longer than humans. Leaf-cutter ants do not eat the leaves they carry. They carry them underground and use them to grow a fungus, which they then eat. They manage their fungal gardens with extraordinary care, removing disease patches, adding the right leaves, maintaining the right humidity. They even produce antibiotic chemicals to keep harmful bacteria from ruining the crop. It is agriculture, complete with pest control, practiced by creatures with brains the size of a grain of sand. A single leaf-cutter ant colony can contain millions of workers, and the tunnel systems they build can extend 10 meters deep and occupy hundreds of cubic meters of earth. The colony maintains separate chambers for different purposes: nurseries, food storage, refuse dumps, kept scrupulously separate from everything else to prevent disease. All of this with no architect, no blueprint, no foreman giving orders. The intelligence that builds an ant colony is called stigmergy, a form of indirect communication through the environment itself. One ant lays a pheromone trail. Another follows it and adds to it. A third follows the stronger trail and adds more. The trail grows, optimizes, finds the shortest route to the food source. Not because any ant planned it, but because each ant responded simply to what she found. The intelligence is in this system, not in any one mind. Do leave a like on this video if it is helping you unwind tonight. It means a great deal to us, and it helps this little channel find its way to others who need a quiet place to rest. Termites build some of the most sophisticated structures in the animal kingdom. Their mounds, some taller than a person, maintain a constant internal temperature and humidity regardless of the weather outside, through a system of ventilation channels and chimneys that rival anything an engineer might design. The mound is not just a home. It is a lung, breathing slowly, exchanging air with the outside world in a system so well tuned it keeps the interior within half a degree of the optimal temperature for the colony. No termite designed this system. No termite understands it. And yet, it works. As reliably as the finest human architecture, built by creatures who are nearly blind and who live only a few years at most. Spiders weave structures of extraordinary mathematical precision. The spiral of an orb weaver's web follows a logarithmic curve, the same curve found in nautilus shells, in the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, in the branching of your own blood vessels. It appears everywhere that efficient, scalable design is needed, because it is the most effective solution, arrived at independently by evolution many times over. A spider's silk is, by weight, stronger than steel and more elastic than nylon. It combines properties that no human material has yet managed to replicate: strength, flexibility, lightness, and the ability to absorb enormous impact without breaking. The spider has been making this material for 380 million years. We have been trying to synthesize it for decades and have still not quite managed it. The monarch butterfly navigates from Canada to Mexico, a journey of 4,000 kilometers, using a combination of the sun's position, the Earth's magnetic field, and an internal clock that compensates for the sun's movement across the sky throughout the day. Most remarkable of all, no single butterfly makes the whole journey. The butterflies that arrive in Mexico in autumn are the great-great-grandchildren of the butterflies that left the previous spring. They have never been to Mexico. They have no map. And yet they arrive, generation after generation, at the same forests in the mountains of Michoacan, often returning to the very same trees their ancestors rested in. This is intelligence stored not in a brain, but in the very structure of the creature, encoded in its cells, its sensors, its instincts. It is a knowledge that belongs to this species rather than to any individual, carried forward through time like a whispered secret that no one forgets. Let that settle over you now. A knowledge carried forward through time. The world remembers things far older than any of us, and it carries that memory in the wings of butterflies, in the spirals of webs, in the dances of bees. The firefly produces light with almost perfect efficiency. Nearly 100% of the energy it uses is converted to light, with almost no heat produced. Our best LED bulbs manage perhaps 20 to 30%. The firefly solved the problem of cold light millions of years before we knew it was a problem. Its light is produced by a chemical reaction so elegant that scientists have borrowed the same molecules, luciferase and luciferin, for use in medical research, as glowing markers that reveal the presence of disease. The bombardier beetle defends itself by mixing two chemicals in a special chamber in its abdomen, producing a boiling, noxious spray that it can aim with precision. The chemical reaction generates temperatures near 100 degrees Celsius. The beetle does not burn itself because the reaction happens in rapid pulses, machine gun bursts of tiny explosions, too fast for the heat to build up. It is a pulse jet system discovered by an insect long before any human engineer thought of it. Dolphins sleep with one eye open, literally, Half of a dolphin's brain goes to sleep at a time, while the other half stays awake and alert, monitoring the environment, remembering to breathe, watching for danger. This unihemispheric slow-wave sleep allows them to rest without ever truly losing consciousness. They drift at the surface in what looks like a kind of waking dream, one eye open, one eye closed, both halves of their mind taking turns at rest. Some birds can do the same. Ducks sleeping in a row on a lake will position themselves so that the outermost ducks keep their outward eyes open, the side facing the open water where danger might come from, while the inner ducks sleep with both eyes closed. When researchers moved the outermost duck to the middle of the row, it promptly closed both eyes and slept deeply. It knew it was safe. The octopus is perhaps the strangest intelligence in the ocean. It has 3 hearts, blue blood, and arms that can taste what they touch. Each arm has a degree of autonomous intelligence. It can solve certain problems on its own without instructions from the central brain. An octopus can unscrew a jar, open a child-proof bottle, navigate a maze, recognize individual human faces, and plan ahead. It does all of this with a brain fundamentally different from ours, not centralized, not hierarchical, but distributed through its body, a mind that reaches into every arm. Crows are among the most intelligent birds on the planet. They use tools, bending wires into hooks to retrieve food from narrow tubes, stripping leaves from twigs to use as probes. They plan ahead, storing food in hundreds of hidden locations and remembering where it is for months. They hold what appear to be funerals, gathering around dead crows, calling an alarm, forming a kind of mob to investigate and remember the cause of death. Researchers believe these gatherings may serve as a learning mechanism. By observing where and how a crow died, the living crows learn what dangers to avoid. We are so glad you are spending this quiet evening with us. If you have not yet seen our other playlists, we have many nights like this one waiting for you, each one a different corner of the natural world to rest in. The Clark's nutcracker, a bird of the mountain forests of North America, buries up to 30,000 pine seeds each autumn and remembers the locations of most of them through the winter snow. It retrieves them months later to survive the cold season. To accomplish this, it has an enlarged hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with spatial memory. Its brain literally grows to accommodate the maps it needs. The Caledonian crow, found only on one Pacific island, makes tools that no other crow and no other non-human animal has been observed making. Hooked tools, shaped specifically to extract grubs from narrow holes. The crows make the hooks by stripping and bending stems, choosing the right plant, working with patience and precision. Young crows learn the technique by watching their parents. It is, by most definitions, a culture, a learned behavior passed from one generation to the next. Elephants remember. They know individual faces, human and elephant alike. After years apart, they mourn their dead, returning to the bones of lost family members, touching them gently with their trunks, standing in silence. They hold the knowledge of their landscape in a way that has no obvious parallel in other animals. The eldest female of a herd carries a mental map that encompasses waterholes, migration routes, and food sources across hundreds of kilometers, some of them last visited decades before. When drought comes, it is the matriarch's memory that saves the herd. The matriarch elephant is not just a leader, she is a library. Her knowledge, accumulated over 60 or 70 years of careful attention to the land, is irreplaceable. When poaching removes the eldest females from a herd, the younger elephants are left disoriented, unable to navigate crises they have never faced before. The intelligence of the herd depends on the memory it has accumulated, on the wisdom carried by its oldest members. Let your breath slow, like the breathing of an elephant in the evening. Deep, slow, deliberate, those great creatures standing in the amber light of dusk, leaning against each other, the young ones pressing close to the warm flanks of their elders. There is such peace in that image. Whales sing. The humpback whale's song is one of the most complex vocal productions of any animal on Earth. A composition of themes and phrases that can last for hours, constantly evolving over the course of a breeding season, with males across an ocean population all gradually incorporating the same new phrases at roughly the same time. The song changes, spreads, and is adopted, not through direct communication between individuals, but as a kind of cultural wave moving through a population spread across thousands of kilometers of open ocean. Sperm whales have the largest brains of any animal on Earth, 6 times the mass of a human brain. The region of their brain that processes social and emotional information is extraordinarily developed, more complex in some ways than the equivalent region in any other animal. Sperm whales live in complex matrilineal family groups, communicating through a system of cliques called codas. Different clans have different codas, different dialects like different languages. The codas are learned, not inherited. They are culture. Dolphins in Shark Bay in Australia have been observed using sea sponges as tools, wearing them on their beaks to protect themselves while foraging on the rocky sea floor. This behavior, unique to a small group of dolphins and passed from mother to daughter, is another example of animal culture, a technique invented once by one clever individual and then taught to children and to their children, spreading through a community, not through genes, but through learning. The intelligence of the ocean is vast and unhurried, moving through cold blue depths where there is no day or night, only the slow drift of time and the patient accumulation of knowledge passed from body to body, generation to generation, in song and click and the gentle press of a sponge against a rocky seabed. The salmon finds its way home across thousands of kilometers of open ocean to the exact river, the exact tributary, the exact gravel bed where it was born, guided by the magnetic field of the earth, and, in the final kilometers, by the specific chemical signature of its home water, a smell it memorized as a tiny fingerling before it ever left for the sea. It navigates the most featureless environment on Earth with a precision that still amazes researchers who have spent careers studying it. The smell of home. There is something in that phrase that loosens something in the chest. The smell of home as a navigation system, as a compass, as the thing a creature follows across years and miles and dark water to return. Nature stores so much in smell, the identity of a place, the memory of safety, the signal that says, you are close, you are almost there. Fish in schools seem to move as one organism, turning, darting, splitting, and reforming with a coordination that has no conductor. Each fish responds only to its immediate neighbors matching their speed and direction, keeping a specific distance. The school emerges from this simple rule followed by thousands of individuals simultaneously. No fish leads. No fish plans the shape of the school. And yet, the school sweeps and billows like a single breathing thing, confusing predators, moving with an efficiency no individual fish could manage alone. The lateral line, a sensory organ running along the length of a fish's body, detects pressure changes in the water with extraordinary sensitivity. It is a sense humans have no equivalent for. The ability to feel the movement of water around you, the wake of a nearby body, the pressure pulse of something approaching from behind. In a school of fish, this sense allows each individual to feel the movements of its neighbors instantly, creating the near instantaneous coordination that makes a school seem to think as one. We hope this evening is finding you somewhere comfortable and warm. If these gentle stories are helping you rest, please do leave a like. It lets us know that this quiet space is reaching the people who need it. The archer fish hunts by spitting a precisely aimed jet of water at insects perched on branches above the surface. It must account for the refraction of light between air and water, the way light bends at the interface between the two, making objects appear where they are not, and adjust its aim accordingly. It does this so accurately that it can knock a small insect from a twig a meter above the surface with a single shot. Researchers discovered that archer fish can also learn this correction by observation. Young fish that watch an experienced fish shoot begin to account for refraction even before they have practiced themselves. Cleaner wrasse fish operate cleaning stations on coral reefs, small territories where larger fish come to have parasites removed from their skin, gills, and mouths. The predators that come to be cleaned, fish that would normally eat a fish the size of the wrasse, wait in a recognizable posture, signaling that they are there to be cleaned, not to feed. The wrasse recognizes this posture and gets to work. The cleaning station is a place of extraordinary truce, sharks, groupers, and morays floating docilely while small fish work around their open jaws. It is a social contract, observed reliably by creatures with tiny brains and no language at all. The electric eel generates electricity up to 600 volts, not just as a weapon, but as a sensing system. Its low-voltage electric field extends around its body like an invisible bubble, detecting distortions caused by nearby objects, prey, and other eels. In the muddy, dark waters of the Amazon, where visibility is near zero, this electric sense allows the eel to navigate and hunt as confidently as if the water were clear. It lives in a world we cannot perceive, built entirely from electrical fields. Dragonflies are the most successful hunters in the insect world, catching over 95% of their prey attempts, a success rate higher than any lion, wolf, or hawk. They do not chase their prey. They predict where it will be and fly there, intercepting it in midair. To do this, they must solve the mathematics of trajectory in real time, accounting for their own movement, the prey's movement, wind, and the changing angle of approach, all in a brain the size of a sesame seed. The deep intelligence of the animal world is not always in the form we expect. It is not always consciousness as we experience it, not always planning and memory and reflection. Sometimes it is the perfection of a single act, performed without thought, without effort, without error, the dragonfly arriving exactly where the fly will be. the salmon arriving exactly at the gravel bed where it was born, the archerfish accounting for refraction without a single lesson in optics. There is a kind of perfection in this that asks nothing of us, that needs no understanding, that simply is. As you rest here, let yourself be something like the school of fish, moving without decision, following without thinking, part of a larger rhythm that carries you easily. The cuttlefish can change its color and pattern with a speed and complexity that rivals any display screen. It does this not just to hide, though it hides so perfectly, it can vanish against almost any background, even once it is never encountered, but to communicate. Cuttlefish flash complex patterns at one another during courtship, during threat displays, during the subtle negotiations that happen in every social encounter. They speak in light, in a language written on their own skin, changing in milliseconds. In one remarkable observation, a male cuttlefish with a female on his right side and a rival male on his left simultaneously displayed a female pattern on his left half and a courtship pattern on his right, deceiving the rival while wooing his mate. Two different things at once, on two halves of his skin for two different audiences. A diplomat, a trickster, and a lover, all in a creature that lives for about 2 years and has a brain the size of a walnut. Rain knows where to go. It falls without preference, on stone and leaf and ocean alike. But then the land sorts it. The slope of a hillside sends it one way. The angle of a root channels it another. The microscopic roughness of soil pulls it slowly downward, while the surface tension of water makes it cling to grains of sand. Every raindrop that falls on a watershed is guided by a million tiny decisions made by geology and biology together, until it finds a stream, and the stream finds a river, and the river finds the sea. The water in the glass you drank from today is ancient. Some of it has been part of rivers that no longer exist, has been breathed out by animals extinct for millennia, has been locked in glaciers and released, has crossed oceans as vapor and fallen as snow on mountains. The water cycle is not a cycle in the simple sense of a loop. It is more like a conversation, a continuous exchange between the sky and the land and the sea, a movement that has been happening since the first oceans formed on Earth 4 billion years ago. A river is not just water. It is a transport system, a habitat, a landscape sculptor, a climate moderator, a library. The sediment it carries contains pollen from plants that grew beside it decades ago, minerals from rocks it dissolved far upstream, organic material from the bodies of creatures that lived and died in its banks. Scientists reading a river sediment core can reconstruct the history of a landscape going back thousands of years. A record written in mud, one thin layer at a time. The meander, the curving, looping bend of a river through a flat plain, is not random. It is the result of water following its own most efficient path, a constant negotiation between the force of flow and the resistance of the bank. The outside of each bend erodes, the inside deposits. The curve grows tighter, then breaks through into a new path, leaving the old bend as an oxbow lake, curved and still, a record of where the river used to be. The river writes its own autobiography in the landscape. Let your thoughts move like a river now, not straight, not forced, but finding their own way around whatever is in front of them, curving gently, slowing in the wide places, releasing without resistance. Springs are places where underground water, moving through the rock for decades or centuries, finally reaches the surface, they emerge with a temperature that reflects the average temperature of the rock they pass through, often cold in summer and surprisingly warm in winter. And they bring with them minerals dissolved from stone far underground, which they deposit at the surface as they cool, building up formations of travertine and tufa, the slow stone architecture of water's patience. The tidal bore is one of the ocean's most dramatic forms of intelligence, a wave that travels upstream in a river when the tide rises, pushing against the river's current, reversing the flow. In the Bay of Fundy in Canada, where tidal bores occur twice a day, the tidal range, the difference between high and low tide, is the largest in the world, over 16 meters. Twice a day, the seabed is exposed and then submerged under 16 meters of water, a rhythm so regular and reliable that it has been shaping the ecosystem there for thousands of years. Snowflakes form around tiny dust particles in clouds, water vapor crystallizing in the cold air in hexagonal structures dictated by the chemistry of water itself. Each snowflake takes a different path through the cloud, encountering different temperatures and humidities at different stages of its formation, and so each grows differently. The same hexagonal symmetry, but a different specific pattern shaped by the precise history of its fall. No two snowflakes are the same in the sense that no two paths through a cloud are the same. The individuality of the snowflake is a record of its particular journey through the air. The playlist on this channel has many evenings like this one: rainy nights, starry nights, forest mornings, and ocean dusks. We hope you will visit again whenever you need a quiet place. Ice itself is remarkable. Water is one of the very few substances that is less dense as a solid than as a liquid, which is why ice floats. This single property, seemingly small, has shaped all of life on Earth. Because ice floats, frozen lakes and ponds are insulated from above. The ice layer prevents the water below from freezing, allowing fish and other creatures to survive the winter in liquid water beneath a ceiling of ice. If ice sank, bodies of water would freeze solid from the bottom up, and most freshwater life as we know it would not exist. The sound of rain is one of the most universally soothing sounds known to human beings. In studies of sounds that reduce anxiety and promote sleep, rain consistently appears at the top of the list. The randomness of raindrops, not perfectly rhythmic, not perfectly irregular, but something in between, produces a type of sound called pink noise, which closely matches the natural rhythms of certain brain states associated with rest. The rain is, in a sense, tuned to us, or we to it, by millions of years of sleeping in forests while rain fell on leaves above us. Rivers carry life. Salmon, moving upstream, bring nutrients from the ocean into the heart of forests. Nitrogen and phosphorus and carbon from the deep sea, carried inland in silver bodies, deposited in the soil as the salmon die and decompose, absorbed by the roots of trees, converted to leaves and needles that fall and become soil that feeds the river. The forest feeds the river, and the river feeds the forest, and the ocean feeds them both, and the rain connects them all. It is all one system, one vast conversation between rain and root and sea. The fog that rolls in from a cold ocean can carry more moisture than rain in some coastal environments. Certain forests, the fog forests of the Pacific coast of North America, the cloud forests of Central America, exist largely because of the water they collect from fog. Trees that are covered in moss and lichen that absorb fog directly from the air, channeling it down their trunks to the soil. The forest catches the sky. The sky waters the forest. In a rainforest without rain, the trees have simply learned to drink the clouds. Soil is not dirt. It is the most complex ecosystem on Earth, measured by biodiversity per cubic centimeter. A single teaspoon of healthy soil can contain 1 billion bacteria, several hundred meters of fungal threads, thousands of protozoa, hundreds of nematodes, and dozens of mites. The life in soil is so numerous that it outweighs all the life above ground, all the animals, all the people, all the forests, several times over. We walk on the richest environment on Earth, and most of us never think about what is beneath our feet. Soil forms over extraordinary timescales. A single centimeter of topsoil takes approximately 100 years to form. Through the patient breakdown of rock by rain and frost and root and fungus, combined with the accumulation of organic matter from generations of living things. A meter of fertile topsoil is the product of tens of thousands of years of quiet work. It is not renewable on any timescale that means anything to a human life, which is why it is one of the most precious things on Earth. The earthworm is a soil engineer of the first order. As it burrows and feeds, it mixes organic material into the mineral soil, creating aggregates that hold air and water, improving drainage and fertility in every square centimeter it passes through. Darwin spent much of his later years studying earthworms, filling notebooks with observations about their behavior, eventually concluding that no other creature had played such an important role in shaping the soil of the earth. He was right. Earthworms are, in a very real sense, the authors of the fertile earth. The smell of soil after rain, that deep, rich, green earth scent, has a name: petrichor. It comes mainly from a compound called geosmin, produced by bacteria in the soil. Human beings can detect geosmin at concentrations as low as a few parts per trillion. We are extraordinarily sensitive to it. Scientists speculate that our sensitivity evolved in ancestors who depended on finding water and fertile soil. The smell of rain on Earth is one of the oldest signals in our sensory repertoire. It meant life was possible here. It meant to stay. Let yourself breathe in that imagined smell now. Rain on warm earth. The deep, clean, ancient smell of soil alive with life. Let it settle you. Lichens, those crusty gray-green patches on rocks and bark, are one of nature's most durable partnerships. A lichen is not one organism but two, a fungus and an alga, living together so intimately that they function as a single being. The fungus provides structure and absorbs water. The alga photosynthesizes and provides sugars. Together, they can colonize bare rock in conditions where nothing else survives. Arctic mountaintops, Antarctic ice-free valleys, the surfaces of buildings in polluted cities. They grow perhaps a millimeter per year and live for thousands of years. The oldest known lichen in Greenland is estimated to be over 8,000 years old. Rocks speak to those who know how to listen. The striations in a cliff face are the records of ancient seabeds, layers of sediment pressed over millions of years into stone. The fossils embedded in limestone are the bodies of creatures that lived in shallow tropical seas. now elevated into mountains by the slow press of plate tectonics. Every rock is a chapter of a story far longer than our species has existed. The intelligence of stone is the intelligence of record, of witness, of memory written in mineral. Wind carries intelligence. It carries pollen from one flower to another across distances of kilometers, the breath of plants drifting invisible in the air. It carries seeds, the dandelion's tiny parachutes, the maples spinning helicopters, the poplars drifting white fluff. It carries spores of fungi and bacteria from continent to continent. It carries the moisture that becomes rain. Wind is the courier of the natural world, moving information and life from one place to another, stitching ecosystems together across geography. If this evening is finding you somewhere soft and warm, consider sharing this video with someone who might need a quiet night. And a like tells us that this little channel is doing its work. The dune is a kind of intelligence in sand. A wind blows over a flat surface, and the tiniest irregularity, a pebble, a patch of different density, creates a zone of turbulence that deposits more sand. The pile grows, and as it grows, it creates more turbulence, depositing more sand, building a structure that then moves through the desert as a slowly migrating wave, its windward face shallow and its lee face steep, its shape determined entirely by the laws of physics applied to 1 billion individual grains of sand, each one responding to nothing more than the wind and its neighbors. The dune thinks with physics. Its intelligence is the intelligence of emergence, complexity arising from simplicity, applied 1 billion times over. A cave is the intelligence of patience. Water seeping through limestone dissolves it, molecule by molecule, over millions of years, until chambers and passages have been carved that rival any cathedral, decorated with stalactites and stalagmites, built one drop at a time. The longest stalactite ever recorded grew for over 300,000 years. It is patience made visible, the slow accumulation of evidence that water and time, given enough of both, can build anything. Mountains are the earth's own slow gesture toward the sky. They rise where plates collide, grinding against each other with a force that over millions of years pushes rock above the clouds. They are not permanent. Rain and frost and ice are always taking them apart, grain by grain, sending them back to the sea as sediment. A mountain is a conversation between forces of building and forces of erosion, held in precarious, majestic balance. And the balance is always moving, always changing, always tending, very slowly, toward the sea. The sun rises every morning with the steadiness of something that has been doing this for 4.5 billion years. That light, when it reaches the surface of a leaf, is captured by a molecule called chlorophyll, one of the most important molecules in the history of life on Earth. Chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light and reflects green, which is why plants are green. But more importantly, it uses the energy of that absorbed light to split water molecules and combine carbon and hydrogen into sugar. It is the first step in the chain of energy that feeds almost every living thing on land. The efficiency of photosynthesis, the percentage of incoming light energy that a plant converts into usable chemical energy, is typically between 1 and 2% under natural conditions. This sounds low, but for millions of years, life has managed perfectly well on this fraction. and the total amount of solar energy captured by Earth's plants, algae, and cyanobacteria is staggering. Roughly 100 terawatts per year, several times the total energy used by all of human civilization. The leaf, in cross-section, is an engineering marvel. The upper surface is transparent and allows light to pass through to the chloroplasts below. The cells inside are arranged to maximize light absorption while allowing carbon dioxide to diffuse in and oxygen to diffuse out through tiny pores called stomata. The stomata open and close in response to light, humidity, temperature, and carbon dioxide concentration, balancing the need for gas exchange against the need to conserve water. Each stoma is controlled by a pair of guard cells that swell and shrink with changes in water pressure. A hydraulic valve operating without any electrical signal. Sunsets owe their colors to the same physics that governs the blue of the sky. Light from the sun must travel through more of the atmosphere at low angles, scattering the shorter blue wavelengths away and leaving the longer reds and oranges to reach your eyes. The deeper, richer colors of a particularly vivid sunset come from particles in the air, dust, pollen, salt from the sea, each one acting as a tiny prism. A volcanic eruption halfway around the world can produce sunsets of extraordinary beauty for months afterward. The fine ash drifting in the stratosphere, painting the sky every evening with the colors of fire. Let that imagine fill your mind. The slow fade of a sunset, orange to rose to violet to the first faint star appearing. The day releasing itself, the light stepping back, the world quieting. The aurora borealis, the northern lights, is caused by particles from the sun colliding with gases in the upper atmosphere, exciting their electrons, which then release energy as light. The specific colors depend on which gas is involved and at what altitude. Green is oxygen at about 100 kilometers. Red is oxygen at higher altitudes. Blue and purple are nitrogen. The light moves and ripples because the particles are carried on streams of solar wind that shift and pulse in patterns governed by the sun's own magnetic activity. Stars that you see tonight, some of them, no longer exist. The light reaching your eyes left those stars thousands of years ago, and the star may have changed or died in the meantime. You are looking into the past when you look at the night sky. The star that you see and the star that is are two different things, separated by the time it takes light to travel, and yet both are true in their own way. The light that left a distant star before the pyramids were built is arriving tonight for the first time. The moon's gravitational pull creates the tides, and the tides are one of the most powerful forces shaping life at the ocean's edge. The intertidal zone, exposed at low tide, submerged at high, is one of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth because its inhabitants have had to solve the problem of living in two different worlds at once. The underwater world of waves and predators and constant moisture, and the exposed world of sun and desiccation and air-breathing predators. Every creature that lives there is a solution to this problem, shaped by millions of years of twice-daily challenges. The gravitational relationship between the Earth and the Moon is not static. The Moon is slowly moving away from the Earth by about 4 centimeters per year as tidal friction transfers energy from Earth's rotation to the Moon's orbit. Long ago, when the Moon was much closer, the tides were enormous, walls of water sweeping around the planet twice each day, carving coastlines and driving powerful evolutionary pressure on anything trying to live at the ocean's edge. The intelligence of life at the shore is the intelligence of creatures who have been solving the tide problem for 500 million years. The Milky Way, our own galaxy, contains between 100 and 400 billion stars, of which the Sun is one perfectly ordinary member, located about 2/3 of the way out from the center on a minor spiral arm. Every star you can see with the naked eye is in our galaxy. The Andromeda Galaxy, the nearest large galaxy to our own, is visible as a faint smudge to the naked eye on a dark night, and it contains 1 trillion stars. There are 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. The intelligence of the cosmos is in its numbers, in its distances, in the sheer improbable fact that any of it produced something capable of wondering about it. The sun will set tonight as it has always set, and the stars will appear as they have always appeared, and the earth will turn through the dark hours while you rest, and in the morning the light will return. This has happened 4.5 billion times already. It will happen again tonight and tomorrow and for billions of mornings after we are gone. A cloud forms when warm, moist air rises and cools, and the water vapor in it condenses around tiny particles, sea salt, dust, pollen, smoke, into droplets too small to fall. A single cumulus cloud can contain 500,000 kilograms of water, all of it suspended in the sky by the updrafts of warm air rising beneath it, as light and airy as the cloud looks from the ground. The cloud is not light. It is very heavy. It is just also very big. The shape of a cumulus cloud is determined by the pattern of the air beneath it, the thermal currents rising from warmer patches of ground, the wind at altitude, the interaction of the cloud's own growth with the atmosphere around it. No 2 clouds are the same shape, because the atmosphere is never exactly the same twice. Each cloud is a unique solution to the moment's particular arrangement of temperature and moisture and wind. The cumulonimbus, the thunderstorm cloud, is the most powerful expression of the atmosphere's energy. It can reach from near the ground to the top of the troposphere, 15 kilometers or more in height, its top spreading into the characteristic anvil shape as it hits the stratosphere and spreads sideways. Inside, it contains updrafts of air moving at over 200 kilometers per hour, carrying supercooled water droplets and ice crystals that collide and charge, building up the enormous electrical potential that eventually releases as lightning, a bolt of plasma 10 times hotter than the surface of the sun, lasting perhaps 1/3 of a second, equalizing in an instant the charge differential that took an hour to build. Lightning strikes the earth approximately 40 to 50 times per second. Each strike produces nitrogen compounds that rain down into the soil as a form of fertilizer, one of the natural mechanisms by which the atmosphere deposits fixed nitrogen that living things can use. The lightning that lights up your sky on a summer night is, among other things, feeding the soil. You might imagine now lying somewhere safe and sheltered, watching a storm from a distance, the flicker of lightning behind dark hills, the low roll of thunder arriving long after, the smell of rain still to come, all the electricity and energy of it at a comfortable distance, the world doing its powerful work while you rest untouched. The rainbow is light and geometry. When sunlight enters a raindrop, it refracts, bends at the surface, bounces off the back of the drop, and refracts again as it exits. Different wavelengths bend by different amounts, spreading the white light into its component colors. You see a rainbow when the sun is behind you and rain is in front, and the drops that return light to your eyes are exactly those at angles between approximately 40 and 42 degrees from the direction of the shadow of your head. Your rainbow is unique to you, centered on a point that only you can see from where you stand. No one else sees the same rainbow. Fog is a cloud at ground level, and walking through fog is walking through a cloud. In fog, visibility can drop to a few meters, and the familiar shapes of the world dissolve into soft gray mystery. Trees emerge from fog and return to it, half real. Sounds in fog travel strangely, some dampened, some curiously clear. Fog gives the world a quality of pause, of the moment between one thing and another, of the world thinking before it speaks. The rings of Saturn are not solid, but made of ice and rock, ranging in size from grains of sand to houses, each piece orbiting Saturn on its own independent path. The ring's appearance, the result of billions of individual orbits summing together into structure visible from millions of kilometers away. Like the school of fish, like the ant colony, the rings are an emergent form, complexity arising from simple individual behaviors applied at astronomical scale. The universe seems to favor this pattern, simple rules, followed by many individuals, producing forms of astonishing complexity and beauty. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. If these evenings are part of your sleep routine, do check our playlist. There are many more quiet hours waiting for you there. A meteor is a piece of rock or metal, often tiny, entering Earth's atmosphere at high speed and burning up in a streak of light. Most are the size of a grain of sand. The light comes not from the meteor itself burning, but from the air around it, being heated to incandescence by the meteor's passage. A meteor shower occurs when the Earth passes through the trail of debris left by a comet, running through a cloud of ancient dust that has been orbiting the sun for millions of years. Lying on your back watching a meteor shower, you are watching the Earth run through a cloud of comet debris, each grain announcing its arrival in a brief, bright farewell. The temperature inside a star is measured in millions of degrees. The pressure in the core of the sun is enormous enough to force hydrogen nuclei together against their natural electromagnetic repulsion, fusing them into helium and releasing, in the process, the energy that has warmed the Earth for 4.5 billion years. The sun is, in this sense, a vast nuclear furnace, and yet from Earth, in the right conditions, it is exactly the right distance away to warm your face on a spring afternoon without burning it, to grow the food you eat, to drive the water cycle that fills your rivers, to power the entire biosphere. Its size and distance are calibrated by nothing but the luck of physics to sustain life. The sky at dusk turns shades of color that no painter can quite reproduce, not because the pigments don't exist, but because the sky is luminous. It emits light rather than just reflecting it. The colors come from within the sky itself, not from a surface, and the eye responds to that quality of light differently than it responds to reflected color. The beauty of sunset is partly the beauty of luminosity, the quality of something lit from within. The ocean covers over 70% of the Earth's surface and produces over half the oxygen in the atmosphere. This oxygen comes not from the forests, though they contribute, but from the microscopic phytoplankton drifting in the sunlit upper layers of the sea, performing the same photosynthesis as a leaf, but doing it invisibly, in their billions, in every sunlit patch of ocean on Earth. The deep ocean is one of the last great unexplored places on Earth. Below about 200 meters, sunlight cannot penetrate, and the environment becomes a world of permanent darkness, cold, and pressure. Yet it is full of life, strange, extraordinary, luminous life. Approximately 80% of the creatures in the deep ocean produce their own light, a phenomenon called bioluminescence. In the deep sea, in the permanent dark, light is the primary language of communication and predation. The anglerfish uses bioluminescence as a lure, dangling a light-producing appendage in front of its massive mouth, attracting prey from the darkness the way a lantern attracts moths. The firefly squid of Japan produces a full-body display of coordinated blue-green light, flashing in patterns during communication and courtship. Some deep-sea jellyfish flash light when disturbed, not to communicate with each other, but because larger predators are often attracted to bioluminescent flashes, so attacking the jellyfish may bring a larger predator down on the original attacker. The light is a call for help, sent out into the dark. Kelp forests are the underwater equivalent of terrestrial forests, tall, complex, three-dimensional habitats that shelter hundreds of species. Giant kelp can grow up to 0.5 meters per day, and in ideal conditions can reach lengths of 50 meters, forming canopies underwater that filter the light below, just as trees filter light in a forest. The sea otter, by eating sea urchins that would otherwise overgraze the kelp, maintains the health of the entire forest. The otter and the kelp and the urchin are tied together in a relationship so tight that the removal of one collapses the whole. Let your breath slow like the pulse of the ocean, long and deep and certain, in and out. The ocean breathes in its own rhythm, and you are, for now, breathing with it. The coral reef is built by tiny animals, polyps, each one a few millimeters across, that extract calcium carbonate from seawater and build limestone cups around themselves. Each polyp is connected to its neighbors, forming a colony, and the colony over years and centuries builds a structure of extraordinary complexity. The Great Barrier Reef, the largest living structure on Earth, is visible from space and covers an area larger than many countries. It was built, grain by grain, by animals smaller than your thumbnail. Inside each coral polyp lives an alga, a zooxanthella, that photosynthesizes and shares its sugars with the coral in exchange for shelter. The coral provides carbon dioxide, nutrients, and protection. The alga provides food. Without the alga, the coral cannot build its skeleton fast enough to survive. The coral bleaching events that happen when sea temperature rises are the corals expelling their algae in stress, and, without them, starving. The reef's intelligence is the intelligence of partnership, of deep mutual dependence, of a relationship that has held for hundreds of millions of years. The mangrove forest stands at the boundary of land and sea, its roots arching into the salt water in structures that can process salt at the root level and exclude it, or deal with what enters through specialized salt glands in their leaves. Mangroves are, by volume, among the most productive ecosystems on Earth. their root systems providing nursery habitat for the juveniles of a vast proportion of the world's commercially important fish species. The tangled root world below the waterline is a city for small fish, all shelter and corners, all slow current and filtered light. The sea anemone and the clownfish live in one of the most famous partnerships in the ocean. The anemone's tentacles are armed with stinging cells that paralyze most small fish. But the clownfish is immune, protected by a layer of mucus whose chemistry has adapted to block the anemone's sting. The clownfish shelters in the anemone and chases away the butterfly fishes that eat it. The anemone protects the clownfish. It is a truce as old as the reef, a negotiated peace written in chemistry, maintained by both parties without any need for understanding or agreement. The ocean's waves are not water moving forward. They are energy moving through water. As a wave passes, each water particle moves in a circle, rising as the crest approaches, moving forward at the crest, falling as the wave passes, moving backward at the trough, returning to where it started. The water stays roughly where it was. Only the energy travels. What you watch moving across the surface of the ocean is pure form, pure pattern, the shape of energy in transit, without substance, without mass. One of the most beautiful things in physics, visible to anyone who watches the sea. The forest in autumn is intelligence made visible. The tree does not simply die when winter comes. Weeks before the first frost, it begins an orderly withdrawal, shutting down the supply of nutrients to its leaves, reabsorbing the chlorophyll, the green draining away to reveal the yellows and oranges that were always there beneath it, masked by the dominant green. The reds and purples are freshly made, sugars trapped in the leaf as the supply lines close, reacting with the leaf's chemistry in one last burst of color before the leaf is released. The release of the leaf is not passive. The tree builds a special layer of cells at the base of each leaf stalk called the abscission layer, a precise engineered breakpoint. When the time is right, these cells dissolve the connections between the leaf and the tree, and the leaf falls. It is not the wind that takes the leaf. The tree releases it deliberately on its own terms. The fallen leaf is not waste. It is investment. As it rots, broken down by fungi and bacteria and the quiet chemistry of the soil, it releases its minerals back into the earth, where the tree's roots will absorb them again in spring. The tree has not lost its leaves. It has banked them, deposited them in the soil, where they will be waiting when the new leaves need them. The cycle closes with perfect elegance. Winter is not the forest's death. It is its rest. Beneath the snow, the roots are working slowly. The buds that will become next year's leaves are already formed, sealed inside tight scales, waiting. The tree's heartwood, its oldest wood, no longer carrying sap, is as strong in January as in July. The tree has not retreated to nothing. It has simply pulled in, conserved, stored, prepared. The way a tree rests is the way good rest always works. Not a stopping, but a gathering, pulling in, conserving, preparing for what comes next. Let yourself do the same now. Migration is one of the most extraordinary expressions of nature's intelligence. The decision made by hundreds of millions of creatures simultaneously to leave one place and travel toward another. The Arctic tern migrates from pole to pole and back every year, a round trip of about 70,000 kilometers, the longest migration of any animal. In its lifetime of about 30 years, an Arctic tern may fly the equivalent of 3 trips to the moon and back. It navigates using the sun, the stars, the Earth's magnetic field, smell, landmarks, and possibly the pattern of waves on the ocean surface. The wildebeest migration across the Serengeti is 1 million animals moving together, following the rains, following the new grass, in a circuit that has been running for millions of years. The grass grows, the wildebeest follow. The wildebeest fertilize the soil. The grass grows again. The migration is not just the movement of animals, it is the cycling of nutrients across a landscape, the maintenance of the grassland by the grazing that prevents it from becoming woodland. The garden warbler, a small European bird, fattens itself before migration, doubling its body weight in fat reserves, then navigates thousands of kilometers to sub-Saharan Africa, often for the first time without a guide, following an inherited map encoded in its genes. The timing, the direction, the distance, all of it is there in the bird's biology, written in the architecture of its brain and the chemistry of its instincts, passed from parent to chick, not through teaching, but through the quiet inheritance of 1 billion years of precise selection. Thank you for being here tonight. Please do like this video and check the playlist. Every story there is waiting quietly for whenever you need it. The salmon's return to its natal river is in some ways the most poetic of all migrations. The fish that was born in a cold mountain stream, carried by spring floods to the river, down the river to the sea, spent years in the open ocean, and then navigated back thousands of kilometers to the exact gravel bed where it hatched. All this guided by smell, by magnetism, by memory stored in a creature whose entire life was shaped for this one return. When the salmon arrives and turns at last into the familiar current, is it too much to say it has come home? The humpback whale sings in the winter breeding grounds, and the song changes year by year. New phrases introduced, old ones dropped, the whole composition gradually shifting in a pattern that spreads across populations. A researcher listening to recordings of humpback song from the 1970s and comparing them to today would hear something almost unrecognizable. The song is a living, evolving form, the cultural expression of an animal whose voice travels thousands of kilometers through the ocean, filling the deep, cold water with complex music that has no audience except other whales. Red deer stags roar during the autumn rut, their calls rolling across the hills in the cold October air. The roar communicates body size, health, and intent. A large stag's roar has different qualities from a small one's, and rivals can assess each other's likely fighting capacity through the quality of the call. Most confrontations between stags are resolved through this acoustic assessment without actual combat. The smaller stag hears the roar of the larger and withdraws. The intelligence of the roar is the intelligence of honest signaling, a call that tells the truth, because falsifying it would cost too much energy to sustain. Nature's intelligence is always, in the end, about economy, about doing what needs to be done with the least waste, the least effort, the greatest effect. The tree does not grow leaves it does not need. The bee does not fly further than necessary. The salmon does not hesitate or take detours. Everything in nature moves with the precision of long practice, with the confidence of something that has been refined for millions of years toward the one place, the one action, the one moment it was made for. The first light of morning in a forest, that moment when the sky behind the trees begins to separate from darkness, when the shapes of branches become visible again, when the first bird sings a single note into the stillness, is one of the most ancient and unchanged things in the world. This exact progression of darkness to light has been happening on Earth for hundreds of millions of mornings, long before the first human eyes opened to see it. It belongs to no one. It happens regardless of whether anyone is watching. The dawn chorus, the extraordinary burst of birdsong that happens in the hour before sunrise, is at its peak in the weeks around the longest days of the year in the northern spring. Each species begins singing at a different time before sunrise, in an order that is remarkably consistent from day to day and place to place. Robins begin, then blackbirds, then the others in a sequence that may depend on the sensitivity of each species' eyes, beginning singing when the light reaches the threshold their eyes can detect. The dawn chorus is a community of independent voices, each following its own internal cue, producing together something that sounds orchestrated. Birdsong is not just territory announcement or mate attraction. It is also practice. Juvenile birds sing for months before their song is perfected, working through variations and improvisations, gradually converging on the song of their species. Young male nightingales practice alone before migration, refining songs they will sing on the other side of the Sahara. The nightingale sings in the dark, in the middle of the night, for hours, a performance of extraordinary beauty with no obvious immediate audience, as though the music is its own justification. The nesting of birds is a form of intelligence that combines instinct with learning in ways that are still being untangled by researchers. A weaver bird constructs an intricate knotted grass nest hanging from a branch, a feat of structural engineering that requires it to tie specific types of knots, work materials in a specific order, assess the structure as it builds, and correct mistakes. Young weaver birds build many poor nests before they learn to build good ones. The improvement is real, and it is learned. Rest now like a bird in a nest. Each small weight held perfectly, each small warmth shared with the darkness around it. The nest is the world pressed perfectly to the shape of the body. Nothing extra, nothing missing. The swallow's nest is built of mud, which the swallow collects from the edges of puddles and ponds, mixing it with grass fibers and feathers, pressing it carefully onto a wall or rafter, smoothing it with the edge of its beak. The finished nest is a cup of extraordinary strength. The mud dries to something like brick, and the nest can survive for decades, reused by generations of swallows who return each year to the same beam, the same ledge, the same exact spot. The intelligence of the nest is the intelligence of accumulated experience, each generation improving what the last one built. Migratory birds navigate using multiple systems simultaneously. The sun's position, the pattern of stars, the Earth's magnetic field, familiar landmarks, smell. If any one system fails, they can rely on the others. It is a navigation system of extraordinary redundancy and resilience, evolved over millions of years, refined for the specific challenges of a particular migration route. A young bird making its first migration is not using a perfect system from the start. It navigates with what it has and learns to refine it through experience. The kestrel hovers in the wind with almost no effort. making tiny corrections to its wings and tail to hold its position exactly while its eyes search the grass below for movement. Kestrels can see into the ultraviolet, which allows them to follow the urine trails of voles, trails that are invisible to human eyes, but glow brightly in UV, marking the paths voles take through the grass and converging on their burrows. The kestrel looks down from above and sees a landscape lit with paths and signposts that are completely invisible to us. A different world overlaid on the same space. If you are still with us, thank you. And if your eyes are growing heavy now, that is perfect. That is exactly what is supposed to happen. You might leave a like before they close completely. The heron stands at the water's edge with absolute stillness, waiting. It can stand for 30 minutes or more without moving, not frozen, but alert, its attention turned inward to a single point of focus. When the fish appears, the strike takes a fraction of a second, the heron's neck uncoiling like a spring with a speed and precision that requires a perfection of timing it has spent years developing. The rest is a kind of charging, gathering stillness that will become speed. The peace is active. The waiting is work. The barn owl hunts in complete darkness. Its asymmetrical ears, one slightly higher than the other, allow it to triangulate the position of a sound in 3 dimensions, locating a mouse moving under snow from 30 meters away with an accuracy of 1 degree. It makes no sound as it flies. The structures of its wing feathers break up turbulence in a way that eliminates the noise of air rushing over the wing surface. The owl approaches in silence, guided by sound, visible only as a pale shape against the dark, arriving without warning. The intelligence of the owl is the intelligence of perfect adaptation. Every part of its anatomy refined for this single purpose. The swift spends almost its entire life in the air. It eats, sleeps, drinks, and mates on the wing, only landing to nest. Swifts can remain airborne for 2 years at a stretch, sleeping in short bursts while gliding, their brains taking turns in rest as they drift in slow circles at high altitude. They are, in a sense, creatures of pure air, designed for a life without ground, at home in the element most other animals only visit. To be a swift is to live in the sky entirely, without reservation. The most committed sky dweller on Earth. There is a particular quality of light on a summer afternoon when the sun is high and the shadows are short and the air is still. A quality of fullness, of saturation, as if the day has reached its deepest capacity for warmth and brightness. It is the light that makes everything look like a memory, even as it is happening. The light that drenches a meadow in gold and warmth and hum. The light that everything in nature has been angled toward since spring began. In that light, a meadow is alive in every possible direction at once. Bees moving from flower to flower in their efficient, purposeful paths. Butterflies drifting on currents of warm air. Grasshoppers singing from the grass, their songs the exact frequency of summer in a field. Beetles going about their business in the shade of the grass stems, unhurried, purposeful, part of a community of decomposers that keeps the soil rich and the cycle turning. The grasshopper's song is produced by stridulation, rubbing the hind leg against the wing to produce a series of clicks that, at the right frequency, becomes the sound of high summer. Different species produce different songs, and a female grasshopper can identify the song of her own species from among dozens of others steering through a meadow full of competing sounds toward exactly the right singer. It is recognition at a distance, identity encoded in rhythm and frequency. The butterfly's wing scales are microscopic structures that produce color, not through pigment, but through structure. The geometry of the scales refracts and reflects light in ways that produce iridescent blues and greens that shift as the angle of light changes. The morpho butterfly of South America, whose wings are an intense electric blue, contains almost no blue pigment. The color is entirely structural, entirely a trick of geometry applied to light. The butterfly is blue the way the sky is blue, not because it contains blue, but because of how it interacts with light. Let your body become heavy now, the way warm earth becomes heavy in the afternoon sun, the way the meadow leans into the warmth, each blade of grass held in the light, each flower tilted upward. There is nothing to do now. There is nowhere to go. The afternoon is complete. The hummingbird hovers at a flower, its wings beating 70 times per second, its heart beating 1,200 times per minute, its entire body burning energy at a rate that, scaled to human size, would require consuming twice our body weight in food each day. The hummingbird lives at the extreme edge of what metabolism can sustain, running so hot, so fast, so brightly, that it must enter a state of torpor each night, a kind of brief hibernation in which its heart rate drops to 50 beats per minute and its temperature falls, just to survive the hours when it cannot feed. Fireflies communicate in light, each species flashing its own specific pattern, a sequence of flashes with a specific timing, a specific number, a specific color, recognizable to members of the same species in the dark. Male fireflies flash as they fly. Females wait in the vegetation and respond with the same pattern, delayed by a characteristic interval, and the male navigates toward the response. In a field of fireflies on a summer night, dozens of species are signaling simultaneously, the darkness full of species-specific conversations, each one finding its own kind in the dark. The cicada spends most of its life underground, in some species 17 years, feeding on root fluids in the dark before emerging simultaneously with all the other cicadas of its cohort, molting into its adult form, singing for a few weeks, mating, laying eggs, and dying. The 17-year cycle is thought to be an evolutionary adaptation to avoid predators. By emerging en masse, and only every prime number of years, the cicadas overwhelm any predator population that might otherwise specialize in eating them. No predator can evolve to peak every 17 years, and no predator's natural cycle of 2, 3, 4, 5, or any other small number of years will align with 17 consistently. The cicada has solved the predator problem with mathematics. We are so glad you joined us tonight. The playlist is always there whenever you want another evening like this one. The antlion digs a cone-shaped pit in dry sand and waits at the bottom, buried except for its jaws. Any ant that wanders over the rim of the pit and begins to slide down the smooth, unstable sand finds itself avalanching toward the waiting jaws, unable to climb out of the steep, shifting walls. If the ant tries to escape, the antlion hurls sand at it from below, causing further avalanches. It is a trap of pure physics, exploited by a creature that needs no intelligence for the hunt itself, only the intelligence to choose the right spot, dig the right shape, and wait. The bombardier beetle, when threatened, produces a boiling pressurized spray from its abdomen, a chemical reaction generating a rapid series of tiny explosions that make an audible popping sound. The spray can be aimed with precision at any angle, even backward, and the beetle can fire multiple bursts, each separately mixed from its internal reactant chambers. It was an observation of the bombardier beetle that helped inspire early research into pulse detonation engines. The beetle solved a problem in combustion engineering about 300 million years before any human engineer considered it. In the blue hour after sunset, when the light has softened from gold to silver and the first stars are appearing, the meadow quiets. The bees return to their hives. The butterflies find roosting spots in the grass. The swallows, who have been sweeping the air all day, climb higher on the warm updrafts of the evening, catching the last insects in the fading light. The grasshoppers slow their singing. The air cools. The flowers close. One by one, the parts of the meadow pull inward, complete their work for the day, and rest. There is a quality to the world in the late evening that feels different from any other time of day. The light has gone soft and directional, coming from low on the horizon, casting long shadows and edging things with gold. Sounds travel differently in the cooling air. The birds have made their final calls of the day. The bats have begun their silent hunting in the dimming sky. The bat navigates in total darkness by echolocation, emitting pulses of ultrasound at frequencies too high for human hearing, listening for the echoes that return from objects around it, building a picture of the world from the map of returning sound. A single bat can detect and track a moth in total darkness, making corrections to its flight path many times per second as the moth attempts to evade it. The precision of echolocation rivals any radar system ever built, and the bat achieves it with a brain the size of a small grape. Moths have evolved responses to bat echolocation over millions of years of predator-prey pressure. Some moths can hear the bat's ultrasonic calls and take evasive action, folding their wings and dropping suddenly or spiraling away from the sound. Some tiger moths, when they hear a bat, produce their own clicks, jamming the bat's sonar or warning the bat that they are toxic. The arms race between bat and moth has produced one of the most sophisticated sensory systems in the animal kingdom, on both sides of the exchange. The hedgehog emerges at dusk, snuffling through the garden with a purposeful air, following a mental map of its territory to its favored hunting grounds. Hedgehogs have home ranges of up to 2 kilometers, which they navigate with reliable consistency, night after night, returning to the same feeding patches in the same order. They know their territory in fine detail, where the best beetles are, which gardens have pet food left out, where the thick hedges are that provide shelter. All of this is mapped and remembered by a small, spiny, ancient creature who has been navigating English gardens with the same efficiency for millions of years. You are nearly there now. The evening is almost done. Let your body sink a little further. Let your thoughts slow the way the day slows at this hour. The moon rises every night in a position that has shifted slightly from the previous night, following its own cycle within the larger cycle of the year, its face changing from nothing to fullness and back again in a rhythm so reliable that it has served as humanity's oldest calendar. The full moon is bright enough to read by, and the animals of the night know it. Pray, animals become more cautious in the bright nights of the full moon, staying closer to cover. Predators adjust their behavior accordingly. The whole ecosystem breathes with the moon's cycle, a planetary rhythm that has been running since before the first complex life appeared. The night sky above a dark field is a river of light. The Milky Way stretching horizon to horizon, dense with stars in the direction of the galactic center, sparser where we look outward. Shooting stars cross it in brief, silent arcs. Planets trace their patient paths among the fixed stars. The North Star hangs where it always hangs, the one still point in the turning sky, around which everything else revolves. Ancient navigators crossed oceans by it. Migrants follow it. It has been the fixed point of 1,000 generations of sky watchers, the still center of the night. Owls hoot in the dark, not randomly, but in established dialogues between paired birds, the calls carrying information about territory, identity, and readiness to mate. A pair of tawny owls calling back and forth in the dark wood on a winter night are conducting an intimate exchange that has been happening in those same woods between generations of the same pair's descendants for as long as there have been tawny owls in those trees. The conversation is very old. The night air carries the scent of night-blooming flowers, moonflower, evening primrose, night-scented stock, jasmine. These plants have evolved to bloom and release their scent at night because their pollinators, moths, bats, and in tropical regions certain beetles and flies, are most active in the dark. The heavy, sweet, penetrating scent of night flowers is tuned to travel on the cool night air, to reach night-flying creatures from long distances. It is a signal broadcast in the dark, a come find me written in fragrance. The world is slowing now. The great intelligence of nature, the root networks and the bee dances, the salmon's return and the firefly's flash, the coral's chemistry and the swift's endless sky, all of it is resting, or beginning to rest, or resting in one hemisphere while waking in another, the whole planet balanced in its eternal turning, always partly in day and partly in night, always partly resting and partly alive with activity. You have been part of this all along. Your breathing is part of it. Your rest is part of it. The intelligence of your body, maintaining your heartbeat, cycling your blood, repairing your cells while you sleep, is the same intelligence, the same patient, elegant problem solving, the same economy and precision that builds coral reefs and navigates whales and grows the rings of a tree. You are not separate from all of this. You are another expression of it. Nature thinking, nature resting, nature being in the particular form of you. So close your eyes now, if you haven't already. Let the images settle, the forest's underground conversation, the bees' waggle dance, the salmon finding its way home through dark water, the moth and the bat in the night, the star whose light is arriving tonight for the first time. Let all of it soften and merge, the way different streams merge into one river, flowing easy in the dark. The world is warm and quiet around you. You are held. You have everything you need. The great web of life is doing its work tonight, as it always does. Patient, connected, unhurried, and extraordinarily wise. Rest now. Sleep well. The world will still be full of wonder when you wake.